As a child, we spent a lot of time outdoors. It didn't matter whether it was the ocean, the desert, or the mountains. My parents made sure to expose us to nature. Through those many hours spent outside, I grew to love the forest. It was where I felt the most complete. While the waves of the beach were captivating and calming, and the beauty of the sunrise on the desert has a beautiful smell, the majesty of the mountains felt like home. I can relate to John Muir, who once said, "The mountains are calling and I must go." During my years of college and medical school, I had little time to go to the forest. It was a very busy time with a young family, working, and education. Once I graduated from my residency, I decided it was a part of my life that I missed. So off to the woods I went. I put together a backpacking trip to the Grand Teton Mountains in Montana with 3 friends. The first night in the conifer forest, we could look up and clearly see the millions of stars in our Milky Way galaxy, clearer than any city view. The next morning, we were all up with the sunrise, ready for another day of hiking. We waded through shimmering ice-cold rivers, strolled through lush green alpine meadows, and saw moose, elk, and bear. I was home once again. After 6 days, 57 miles, and around 10,000 feet in elevation change, our time in the forest was done. But I promised to return every year, a commitment I have kept for the last 16 years. Humans have existed for thousands of years. Through most of this time, we spent a great deal of our time in nature. We evolved in natural surroundings. Cities have only been a recent invention caused by the industrial age. In 1800, only 3% of the population of the world lived in a city. By 2016, that percentage had grown to 54%. And it is estimated by 2050, the number will be around 66%. While our living situation can change significantly in just 200 years, our genes change very slowly. We live in an environment that our bodies are not genetically adjusted to. Inevitably, this puts us in a state of constant stress, where our parasympathetic nervous system is mobilized by the fight or flight response. This is an acute stress response to a stressor. Sadly, modern life is full of stimulus that triggers the sympathetic nervous system. This has become normal for us as we engage in our busy lives and live in concrete jungles full of stimulus. All of our physiologic functions evolved in a natural environment. This explains why when we come into contact with nature, we relax. That is because our bodies and our genes were made to be adapted in nature. Cities aren't necessarily bad for us. It's just that our bodies need nature in order to regulate and feel more comfortable. The parasympathetic nervous system is the yin to the yang of our sympathetic nervous system. This nervous system regulates the body, allowing it to rest and digest. It balances us and restores the body to a state of calm. It is when our body is calm that it performs various tasks of repair. Why is being in the forest so calming for us? And how does it change us? Is there a way to scientifically measure the effect of the forest on our physiology? In the 1980s, the National Health Program for Shinrin-yoku began to be introduced by the Japanese Forest Agency. At the time, evaluating the benefits of forest bathing was not really possible due to the inability of science to measure these benefits. In 2004, the Japanese Society of Forest Therapy was founded to conduct evidence-based research on the effect of forest therapy on human health. They began a small study by taking a few study participants out into nature and other study participants into an urban area. Their blood pressure, pulse, salivary cortisol, cytokine levels, and natural killer cell levels were taken. Each group were asked to walk for 2 hours at a leisurely stroll in the morning and in the afternoon. Each day, the same parameters were measured. What they found was astounding, and as studies have continued to come in, the evidence continues to impress. Shinrin-yoku increases human natural killer cell activity and the number of natural killer cells as well, as the intracellular levels of anti-cancer proteins such as perforin, granzymes, and granulysin fall. As they looked, they found the increased natural killer cell activity and anti-cancer proteins last for more than 7 days, and in some cases, up to 30 days after the event. This suggests that if people do Shinrin-yoku weekly or monthly, they may be able to maintain a higher level of natural killer cell activity. This is very important in terms of health promotion and preventive medicine. Natural killer cells are immune cells and play an important role in defense against bacteria, viruses, and tumors. People with higher natural killer cell activity showed a lower incidence of cancers, whereas people with lower natural killer cell activity showed a higher incidence of cancers, indicating the importance of natural killer cell function on cancer prevention. Shinrin-yoku has been found to reduce stress hormones such as adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, and may contribute to stress management. This is helpful in regulating our adrenal glands and preventing adrenal fatigue. Shinrin-yoku also reduces blood pressure and heart rate and may have preventive effect on hypertension. It seems that being in nature regulates our blood pressure. For those with lower blood pressure, it helps raise that pressure. For those with higher blood pressure, it seems to lower the blood pressure. Shinrin-yoku can also increase the activity of that parasympathetic nerve, which puts you in the rest and digest side of our nervous system. It also reduces the activity of the sympathetic nerve, showing relaxing effects because we've lowered that fight or flight response. Shinrin-yoku affects not only our physiology, but also our psychology. It's been shown to reduce the symptoms of anxiety, depression, anger, fatigue, confusion, and increase general vigor. Not only will it help if we have these issues already, but may also have a preventive effect on depression. With our parasympathetic nerve activity being increased, we have found that Shinrin-yoku also improves sleep quality. So what is forest bathing and what does an experience look like? Shinrin-yoku is a very simple activity. It consists of 3 parts once you've found a spot of nature to enjoy. Number 1, disengagement from your daily routine. Number 2, deep breathing and nature connection through a series of quiet activities. And number 3, transitioning back to your daily life. So let's take a look at each component. Find some area of untouched nature to spend some time in. You may find a favorite tree to go visit in this space. It may include a stream or waterfall. What's most important is to find a place that you can immerse yourself in nature connections. This place should be somewhere close to you that you can visit frequently. You may actually find a few places that will work, and you can alternate those spaces to change things up on occasion. So number 1, it's so important that we disengage from our daily routines. Our routines often are interrupted by emails, texts, phone calls, and the priorities of others that often trump our own. This is exactly why we need to take time for ourselves that is undisturbed, making ourselves the priority. It is important to set our phones on silent and not involve our electronics in our forest bathing experience. Remember that we're trying to settle into nature. Number 2, connection to nature through quiet activities. The beginning of this connection begins by taking a few slow, deep breaths and connecting with the wonder of nature. We really need to see nature through the eyes of a child, where everything is amazing and a beautiful miracle. After starting to view the world this way, we begin to see the amazing patterns of bark on trees, the activity of ants on the ground, and to hear the sounds of water in a nearby stream. We can engage all of our senses in this part of forest bathing. We can listen intently for the various bird songs in the forest. We watch the treetops move with the shifting breeze. We may feel the branches and leaves of the plants and smell the bark or flowers that surround us. Take time to feel the dirt that the plants are growing in. Feel the coolness and richness of the soil that is home to this piece of nature. Find some water and dip your hands or feet into it. Feel the coolness on your skin while you observe the evidence of where animals may have come to drink of this water. Remember that forest bathing is not a hike. We are not trying to get from point A to point B during this time. We are simply participating in nature and its beauty. Albert Einstein said, "Never lose a holy curiosity." Stop every day to understand and appreciate a little of that mystery that surrounds you. There are some activities that we may want to do while here. Meditation lends itself well to Shinrin-yoku. Yoga also is a great activity to participate in while in nature. Lying in a hammock, looking up at the canopy, helps us stay in the sense of wonder. We may want to have a direct conversation with a tree. Matsuo Basho said, "Not knowing the name of the tree, I stood in the flood of its sweet scents." The author Henry David Thoreau spent a lot of time in nature, and in fact, he spent 2 years living in a cabin on Walden Pond, where he wrote, quote, "I frequently tramped 8 or 10 miles through the deepest snow to keep an appointment with a beech tree or a yellow birch or an old acquaintance among the pines," end quote. It may feel strange at first, but communicating with a tree can be profound. Third, we should slowly transition back to life. We are often reluctant to leave the peace of forest and get back into our normal life. However, the point of Shinrin-yoku is to have that time change us in a fundamental way. We can help that change by asking ourselves questions like, what am I going to bring back to the world with me from this experience? What has this time taught me, and how am I going to change? How can I be more like the tree that I had my conversation with today, deeply rooted in all of my strength, yet able to move and sway with the winds that are around me in the world? If we are with someone or a group, we may want to take a few minutes to share our experience in quiet conversation. Some of us live in climates that change the forest throughout the year. This does not mean that we cannot participate in this activity. Walking through a forest in winter can be a completely different experience. Now, we need to dress warmly, of course, but we can watch how the winter landscape has changed over the last 6 months. It's quite easy to see animal tracks in the snow, and we can observe their behavior by looking at the evidence left behind in the snow. Observe how the trees and bushes have lost some of their leaves, exposing that strong, resilient covering of bark. Watch for winter birds flying through the trees and bushes. I love to watch the light in the winter. It seems to be more muted in some respects and certainly reflects off the snow. Now, spring is a time of new life. Walking in the forest in the spring reminds us of how each year there's a new beginning. Flowers are in bloom and trees are budding with the regrowth of their leaves. Animal life are all having new young ones to feed and protect. The water is colder in the stream, coming from melting snow and ice. And spring forest bathing is all about celebrating the sights, sounds, and smells of awakening. Summer may be the time of year that we most associate with being in the forest. It's a great time to get in the water and experience nature from a different perspective. Warm weather brings out butterflies in meadows and fields. Certain wild berries become ripe in the summer. and with a little education, we can find wild strawberries or raspberries growing along sunny slopes and have a sun-kissed afternoon snack. Warm nights also bring on opportunity to stay out later and hear the sounds of crickets as the sun sets and stargaze the night away from the light pollutions of the city. Lay back in the grass and observe the movement of our planet hurtling through space with our orbiting moon and the stars as our constant guide. Now, while we may want summer to last forever, there is something inside that begins to stir as evenings become colder and colors begin to change. John Muir once said, "Climb the mountains and get their good tidings. Nature's peace will flow into you as the sunshine flows into trees. The winds will blow their own freshness into you and the storms their energy, while cares will drop off like autumn leaves." This is a time of frenzied activities of animals as they prepare for winter. The scent of the forest changes at this time of the year to an earthy, grounding smell. Leaves change from a palette of greens to amazing shades of red, orange, yellow, plum, and brown. It's a great time for reflection and a feeling of melancholy and change. Today, I've spent several hours in this beautiful forest of Mount Takao. Yesterday took me to the mountains on the island of Shikoku. These beautiful forests have been healing for me as I've taken some time out of my busy travel schedule to allow my soul to be home in these trees. It's an honor to be in the forest where the science of nature began years ago. Whether in the forests of the Grand Tetons, the Uintas I call home, or the beautiful mountains that surround us here, I believe the forest speaks a universal language, the language of connection with oneself, a language of peace and balance, the language of healing. Gary Snyder once said, quote, "Nature is not a place to visit, it is home," unquote. I'm grateful to have been invited here to the forests you call home. I'm humbled to bring the gift of these forests home with me to share with my family, whom I love to wander the forest with the very most. As you bravely step out into the gift of Mother Nature and learn the art of Shinrin-yoku, allow yourself to be one with the forest. And remember these words from one of my favorite authors, J.R.R. Tolkien: "Not all who wander are lost." Thank you.